Hi, I'm Sarah. Today I'm going to read you the story of Nina, which is titled like this. My parents gave my sister the apartment I'd lived in for years. She's getting married, you're single. And they blamed me when she sold it to pay off her gambling fiance's $300,000 debts. So I took one step that turned their whole world. Well, let's go. I'm Nina, I'm 28, and I've been living in my parents' place for 4 years now. Don't get me wrong, it's not like I'm some loser who can't afford her own place. I pay rent, I cover all the utilities, and I even did a complete renovation that turned this old apartment into something you'd see in a magazine. My parents were actually pretty cool about the whole arrangement. My mom even complimented the renovation, which was huge because she's not the type to hand out praise easily. The kitchen went from this outdated 1980s nightmare to a sleek modern space with granite countertops and stainless steel appliances. I replaced all the flooring, painted every wall, and updated the bathroom completely. The place looked amazing. Meanwhile, my younger sister still lived at home with my parents. She had some dead-end job that barely paid enough for her to survive, let alone move out on her own. Every time we had family dinners, which happened maybe once a month, the conversation always went the same way. I'm really looking into better opportunities, my sister would say, cutting into her food. There's this company that's hiring for management positions, and I think I have a real shot. My parents would nod along like she was announcing a cure for cancer. That sounds wonderful, honey. How can we help you prepare for the interview? I'd sit there trying not to roll my eyes because we'd had this exact conversation probably 20 times over the past 2 years. Different company names, same empty promises. My sister had gotten comfortable with her situation and had zero intention of actually changing anything. I've been networking too, she'd continue, building connections in the industry. That's so smart, my dad would say, networking is everything these days. I kept my mouth shut during these conversations. What was the point? They wanted to believe her plans were real, and she enjoyed the attention. It worked for everyone except me, sitting there listening to the same recycled talking points. This pattern continued for months. Same dinner conversations, same unrealistic plans, same parental encouragement. I'd gotten used to it, honestly. It was background noise at this point. But then one Sunday dinner changed everything. I have some exciting news, my sister said, practically bouncing in her chair before we'd even finished the main course. My parents looked at her expectantly. I braced myself for another career fantasy. I met someone, she announced, grinning like she'd won the lottery. His name is Derek, and he's amazing. He's handsome, he's successful, he works in finance. She paused dramatically, and he proposed to me. The fork dropped from my hand onto my plate with a loud clang. He what? My sister held up her left hand, showing off a diamond ring that definitely hadn't been there the last time I saw her. Look at this ring, isn't it gorgeous? My parents were cooing over the ring, but I was trying to process what I'd just heard. Wait, when did you meet this guy? 2 months ago, she said casually, still admiring her ring. 2 months, I stared at her. You've known him for 2 months and you're engaged? I know it seems fast, but when you know, she said defensively. That's not fast, that's insane. You don't know anything about him after 2 months. I know plenty about him, we met on a dating site, we've spent tons of time together, and he's perfect for me. I looked at my parents, expecting them to back me up on this. Surely they'd want their daughter to slow down and really get to know someone before making such a huge commitment. We're so excited to meet him, my dad said instead. Yes, when can we meet your fiancé? My mom added. My sister beamed at them. I was hoping you'd ask. Derek would love to meet the family. I felt like I was in some alternate reality where 2 months was a reasonable engagement timeline. Don't you think you should wait a little longer? Get to know him better before making such a big decision? God, Nina, you're so boring, my sister snapped. Just because you don't have a boyfriend doesn't mean you have to be jealous of me. That stung, but I wasn't about to let her deflect. This isn't about jealousy, this is about being smart and careful. Well, I'm happy, and that's what matters, she said firmly. My parents nodded in agreement. Clearly, I was the only one who thought this whole situation was completely crazy. I wanted to argue more, but I could see it was pointless. They'd all made up their minds that this whirlwind romance was somehow normal and healthy. 3 weeks passed after that dinner announcement, and honestly, I tried to put the whole engagement thing out of my mind. I had plenty of work to keep me busy, and dwelling on my sister's questionable life choices wasn't going to change anything. But then she called me on a Thursday evening. "Nina, I need you to come to dinner this Saturday," she said without even saying hello first. "Derek is coming to meet everyone. Mom and Dad are cooking, and you have to be there." I had plans for Saturday, nothing major, just some shopping and maybe catching up on Netflix. But family obligations are family obligations, especially when your sister is about to marry a complete stranger. Saturday came, and I drove over to my parents' house right on time. I knocked and walked in to find everyone already gathered in the living room. My parents were sitting on their usual spots on the couch, my sister was in the armchair, and there was a guy I'd never seen before sitting next to her. This had to be Derek. I'll give my sister credit, he was definitely handsome. Tall, well-dressed, perfect teeth, the kind of guy who looked like he stepped out of a magazine advertisement. He had this confident way of holding himself that probably worked well on dating apps. "Nina," my sister jumped up, "this is Derek. Derek, this is my sister Nina." He stood up and extended his hand with a smile that was just a little too perfect. "Nina, so great to finally meet you. Your sister talks about you all the time." "Nice to meet you too," I said, shaking his hand. His grip was firm, practiced, like he'd rehearsed it. We all sat down, and my parents immediately started asking Derek questions about himself. Basic stuff, where he grew up, what he liked to do for fun, how he met my sister. Something about his answers bothered me, but I couldn't put my finger on what exactly. Everything he said was perfectly reasonable, but it felt rehearsed somehow. We moved to the dining room for dinner, and the conversation continued. Derek complimented my mom's cooking, asked thoughtful questions about my dad's work, and generally charmed everyone at the table. My sister was practically glowing with happiness. "So Derek," I said during a lull in the conversation, "what exactly do you do in finance? Investment banking, portfolio management, what kind of work?" He smiled at me, but something flickered in his eyes for just a second. "I work with clients on various financial strategies. Portfolio optimization, risk management, that sort of thing." "That's pretty vague. What company do you work for?" "Nina," my sister said sharply, "you don't need to interrogate him." "I'm just making conversation," I said. "What's the name of your company, Derek?" Derek shifted in his chair. "It's a smaller firm, you probably wouldn't know it. We focus on private wealth management." But I couldn't let it go, something about his evasiveness was setting off alarm bells. "It's just a company name, what's the big secret?" "There's no secret," Derek said, but he was clearly uncomfortable now. "I just prefer to keep work and personal life separate." "That's weird, most people don't mind saying where they work." My parents were looking uncomfortable now. My dad cleared his throat. "Maybe we should talk about something else." But I was on a roll. "How much money do you make? Are you financially stable enough to support my sister?" "Nina," my mom said sharply. "What? These are reasonable questions. He wants to marry her after 2 months. We should know if he can actually take care of her." My dad stood up and put his hand on my shoulder. "Nina, I think it's time for you to go home." I stared at him. "Are you serious?" "You're creating a tense atmosphere," my mom said firmly. "If you can't be polite to our guest, then maybe you should leave." I looked around the table at all of them. My parents were clearly upset with me, my sister looked mortified, and Derek looked angry but was trying to hide it behind a polite mask. "Fine," I said, grabbing my purse, "I can see I'm not wanted here." Nobody said anything as I headed for the door. Nobody tried to stop me or apologize or suggest we work this out. They were all more concerned about Derek's comfort than my legitimate concerns. I drove home feeling frustrated and confused. Maybe I had pushed too hard, but something about Derek's evasiveness bothered me. People who have nothing to hide don't act like that when asked simple questions about their work. A week passed, and I tried to put the whole dinner disaster out of my mind. I had work to focus on, and dwelling on family drama wasn't going to solve anything. But then, on Saturday afternoon, my doorbell rang. I opened the door to find my parents, my sister, and Derek standing on my threshold. Before I could even say hello, they pushed past me into my apartment like they owned the place. "What's going on?" I asked, watching them walk around my living room like they were inspecting it. Derek was looking around with obvious interest, taking in all the renovations I'd done. My sister was showing him the kitchen, pointing out the granite countertops and new appliances. My parents were just standing there watching them. "Why are you all here?" I asked again. My mother turned to me with an expression I'd never seen before. Cold and determined. "This is my apartment," she said flatly. "I have the right to come here whenever I want." The tone of her voice made my stomach drop. "Okay, but why are you here with them?" My mother turned to Derek. "So, what do you think? Does this place work for you?" Derek nodded, looking around with satisfaction. "It's perfect. This would make a great family nest for us." The sweetness in his voice made me want to gag, but my sister and parents looked delighted by his words. "Good," my mother said, then turned back to me. "Your sister and Derek have decided to live together. They need a place to start their life together, and this apartment is perfect for them." "But I live here," I said, my voice sounding strange and distant to my own ears. "That's your problem," my mother said coldly. "Your sister is getting married soon. She needs this place. You're alone and don't need a man anyway." The cruelty of her words was breathtaking. "Are you telling me to move out?" My mother nodded. "You have 2 weeks. Then they all turned and walked out of my apartment, leaving me standing there in shock. After they left, I stood in my living room for what felt like hours, just staring at the walls I'd painted, the floors I'd refinished, the kitchen I'd completely renovated. My first instinct was to call my mom back and scream at her, but I knew that wouldn't accomplish anything. The second instinct was definitely to cry. But as I stood there looking at everything I'd built in this place, something else kicked in instead. Anger, pure, clean anger that burned away the shock and hurt. Fine, if that's how they wanted to play this, then that's exactly what we'd do. I wasn't going to beg or plead or try to make them see reason. I was going to handle this like the adult I apparently was the only one in this family to be. I grabbed my laptop and started searching for apartments online. I had criteria: closer to work would be nice, similar rent range, decent neighborhood. The first few places I looked at online seemed promising, so I started making calls. By Sunday afternoon, I had 3 apartments lined up to view during the week. Monday came, and I took a long lunch to see the first place. It was smaller than what I was used to, but it was clean and in a good area. The landlord seemed decent enough. Tuesday was the second apartment. This one was closer to work, which would save me commute time and gas money. The kitchen was tiny, but I could work with it. Wednesday's apartment was the winner. It was actually nicer than my current place in some ways, newer building, better security, and the rent was only slightly higher than what I'd been paying my parents. The landlord wanted first month, last month, and security deposit, which would put a dent in my savings, but I had enough to cover it. "I'll take it," I told the landlord on the spot. "Perfect, you can have the keys by Friday." I spent Thursday gathering boxes and planning my move. I wasn't taking anything that belonged to my parents or came with the apartment originally. I'd bought most of the furniture myself over the years, along with all the appliances and decorative stuff. If they wanted to give Derek and my sister a place to live, they could furnish it themselves. Friday came, and I picked up the keys to my new apartment. It felt good to hold them, to know I had somewhere to go that was entirely mine. The weekend was moving time. I'd rented a small truck, and I spent Saturday and Sunday loading up everything that belonged to me. The sectional sofa I'd saved up for, the dining room table and chairs, the bedroom furniture, all my kitchen appliances, my TV and entertainment center, even the art on the walls that I'd bought myself. By Sunday evening, the apartment was basically empty except for the built-in fixtures and the furniture that had originally come with the place. It looked sad and bare, nothing like the beautiful space I'd created. I didn't feel sad though, I felt liberated. Monday morning, I was officially moved into my new place. It was smaller, but it was mine. No family drama, no unexpected visitors, no one telling me I had to leave. Just my own space that I could control. That's when my phone rang, my mother. "What the hell did you do?" she screamed as soon as I answered. "You took all the furniture. You took the appliances." "I took what belonged to me," I said calmly. "Everything I bought and paid for myself. That stuff was for the apartment." "No, that stuff was mine, I bought it with my own money over the past 4 years. If you wanted to give Derek and my sister a furnished apartment, you should have specified that. This is unacceptable, you need to bring that furniture back right now." I actually laughed. "Are you insane? You kicked me out of the apartment with 2 weeks' notice, and now you're mad that I took my own belongings with me? You're being selfish and spiteful." "I'm being practical, I need furniture in my new apartment." There was silence on the other end for a moment. Then my mother's voice came back, colder than I'd ever heard it. "You are no longer my daughter." And she hung up. I stared at my phone for a minute, then shrugged and put it down. If that's how she wanted to handle this, fine by me. I had bigger things to worry about than her dramatic declarations. Over the next few weeks, I focused on settling into my new place and getting back to my normal routine. The apartment was starting to feel like home. I'd arranged my furniture in a way that worked with the smaller space, and I was actually enjoying the shorter commute to work. I didn't hear anything from my family during this time, which was honestly a relief. No guilt trips, no demands to return furniture, no attempts to make me feel bad about moving out. Just blessed silence. 2 months after I'd moved out, I was scrolling through social media when I saw a post from my sister. She was posing in what used to be my living room, but it looked completely different now. She'd redecorated everything, and she was holding up what looked like legal documents. The caption read, "Officially a homeowner. Mom and Dad transferred the apartment to me today. So grateful to start this new chapter of my life in my own place." I stared at the post for a long time. My parents had given her the apartment. Not just let her live there, but actually transferred ownership to her. The apartment I'd renovated, improved, and cared for was now legally hers. It stung, I won't lie, but it also confirmed that I'd made the right choice in leaving. These people clearly had no respect for me or anything I'd contributed to that family. Better to know where I stood than to keep pretending we had a normal, loving relationship. I closed the social media app without liking or commenting on the post. Some things weren't worth responding to. 2 more months passed peacefully. I was settling into my new life, making friends with my neighbors, and generally enjoying the independence of having my own place where no one could kick me out on a whim. Then my sister called. When I saw my sister's name on my phone, my first instinct was to decline the call. We hadn't spoken since the day they'd all shown up at my apartment and kicked me out. But something in me was curious about why she was calling now, after all this time. "Hello," I answered cautiously. "Mina," my sister's voice was shaky, and she sounded like she'd been crying. "I need to see you. Can we meet somewhere?" This was not what I'd expected. "What's wrong?" "I can't talk about this over the phone. Please, can we meet at that cafe near your old job? The one with the outdoor seating?" She sounded genuinely upset, which made me hesitate. Part of me wanted to hang up and go back to my peaceful life without family drama. But part of me was curious about what could have happened to make her sound so desperate. "Fine, when?" "Now, I know it's short notice, but this is really important." I looked at my watch. It was Thursday evening, and I didn't have any plans. "Okay, give me 30 minutes. I drove to the cafe wondering what this could be about. Maybe she was having second thoughts about the engagement? Maybe Derek had shown his true colors and she'd finally seen what I'd been worried about. I found my sister sitting at a corner table, and she looked terrible. Her eyes were red and puffy, her hair was a mess, and she kept fidgeting with her hands. The engagement ring was still there, but she looked like a completely different person from the glowing bride-to-be I'd seen at dinner. "Thanks for coming," she said as I sat down. "What's going on? You look awful." She let out a laugh that sounded more like a sob. "Derek has some financial problems. Really serious ones." I felt my stomach drop. "Like what?" "He's a gambling addict," she said quietly. "He owes a lot of money to some very bad people." I stared at her. "How much money?" $300,000. The number hit me like a physical blow. "Jesus Christ, 300,000? She nodded, tears starting to flow again. "I had no idea, he hid it from me completely. But last week, some men came to the apartment looking for him. They were scary, Nina, they told me about the debts." "You can't stay with him," I said immediately. "You have to get away from that situation right now." "It's not his fault," she said defensively. "He told me it happened a long time ago, that he's not gambling anymore, it was just bad luck." "Are you insane? $300,000 in gambling debts isn't bad luck, it's an addiction. And now you're in danger because of it." "The men who came to the apartment, they weren't violent or anything. They just wanted to talk to Derek." "Listen to yourself, you're making excuses for a man who lied to you about having massive debts to dangerous people." "I know it sounds bad, but I love him, I want to help him." "How exactly do you plan to help him?" She looked down at her hands. "I was hoping you could lend us the money." I actually laughed out loud. "You want me to give you $300,000? Not give, lend, we'd pay you back." "I don't have $300,000. Nobody just has that kind of money lying around. You've been saving for an apartment, and you could take out a loan." I stared at her in complete disbelief. "You want me to go into massive debt to bail out your gambling addict fiancé? He's not an addict anymore." "Wake up, of course he's still an addict. That's how addiction works. You're just jealous because I found someone and you're still alone. I'm trying to save your life, you idiot. This man is dangerous news, and you're too blind to see it. I don't need saving, I need help from my sister." "Well, you're not getting it, not like this." She started crying harder. "I can't believe you're being so selfish." "I'm being realistic, find another solution because I'm not destroying my financial future for Derek's gambling debts." I stood up to leave, but she grabbed my arm. "Nina, please, I don't know what else to do. Break up with him, move back in with mom and dad, start over." "I can't do that." "Then figure it out yourself." I walked away from that cafe feeling sick to my stomach. My sister was in serious trouble, but there was nothing I could do to help her if she wouldn't help herself. That evening, my parents called. I almost didn't answer, but I figured they'd keep calling until I did. "Nina, you need to help your sister," my father said without preamble. "I'm not giving her $300,000. She's family, family helps family. Family doesn't kick family members out of their homes either, but that didn't stop you. This is different, she's in real trouble. She's in trouble because she ignored my warnings about Derek and married a stranger. These are the consequences of her choices. You're being cruel and selfish." My mother's voice came on the line. "I'm being smart, something nobody else in this family seems capable of." I hung up on them and turned off my phone. A month later, I heard through cousins what had happened. My sister had sold the apartment, the one my parents had given her, the one I'd renovated and improved, and given Derek the money to pay his debts. But Derek didn't just take the $300,000 from the apartment sale. He also secretly withdrew money from my sister's credit cards and bank accounts, stealing another $50,000. Then he disappeared completely. My sister was left with no apartment, no fiancé, no money, and massive credit card debt that Derek had racked up in her name. She'd had to move back in with my parents and was working 2 jobs to try to pay off what Derek had stolen. When my mother called to tell me this, I expected her to apologize for not listening to my warnings about Derek. Instead, she screamed at me that it was all my fault. If you had helped her when she asked, none of this would have happened. If I had given her money, Derek would have taken that too and disappeared anyway. You could have prevented this. I tried to prevent this. You all called me jealous and boring for asking reasonable questions about Derek. Now you have to help her pay off the credit card debt. No, I don't. She's your sister. She made her choice, you all made your choices. Now live with the consequences. I hung up and immediately blocked all their phone numbers. When they started calling from other numbers and sending messages about family duty and how selfish I was, I changed my phone number entirely. 6 months have passed since then. I know from relatives that my sister is still living with my parents, still working 2 jobs, still paying off Derek's debts. The police are looking for him, but he's completely vanished. I don't feel sorry for any of them. They had every opportunity to listen to my concerns about Derek. Instead, they chose to attack me for asking questions and kick me out of my home to make room for a con artist. They made their choices. I made mine. And I'm perfectly happy with how things turned out.